Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I am the host, Attorney John Khosravi, and I practice U.S. immigration law exclusively. For more information about the program, please visit www.immigrationlawyerspodcast.com. Please note that this recording is informational only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with a licensed attorney for specific legal guidance that suits your case. Also, this recording is copyrighted and written permission is required for rebroadcasting. For more information about me, please visit www.jqqlaw.com.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this episode of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. We're going to do a great session, 10 questions with Jonathan Grode. Am I pronouncing? I always ask, I pronounce this stuff right. I don't want to say the name
Yeah,
wrong.
you got it. It's like you're all grown up, John.
Jonathan and I knew each other because he still is, I believe, and I was on the law school liaison or the law student liaison committee for AILA National. He's the chair, and I was the vice chair on the last year I was there, and then I stopped. But he's a guy dedicated to, just law students, new lawyers coming in, just the whole practice. And so I want to get to know him, and you can learn a lot. Even before starting this recording, we were discussing. I learned a lot just from a few minutes of conversation, so we could continue that here. John, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You got it. So let's start out with let me know where you grew up. Where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from Philadelphia. I grew up in a suburb called Abington. And honestly, growing up here, and this is where I live now, but honestly, growing up here, like all I wanted to do was leave. To be honest with you, I was like ready to get out of the Philadelphia area. And, I put a big premium on travel. Mm-hmm. Which really started helped enhance my passion for immigration and immigration law as something I wanted to do for a living. But, and we were talking about this before, but my MO I worked at a number of law firms after graduating from college. And then I was always a legal assistant. I would save as much money as I could. And then I'd quit and I'd go traveling for a year at a time. And I did that 3 times before I found myself going back to Philadelphia to go to law school as an evening student. And frankly, I came back to Philly because I was still eligible for in-state tuition at Temple Law, which from an economic decision was a good one.
Makes sense. So that kind of bled into my second question, how you got into immigration law. I'm going to go into that more, but I'm interested, where would you go on these long trips traveling?
So I would pick places that I was just interested in. I did a lot of traveling in Europe. I did a junior abroad in the UK, and that spurred an interest to go back there. I spent a lot of time on the continent. I did a trip where I was based in Thailand and then sort of explored all of Southeast Asia. And then my last gasp was right after 9/11, I was working in New York. And I was like, man, I need to just do one more trip before I settled into life because life is too short. I think that's something we're reminded of today with everything that's going on. And I did a trip where I did Fiji, Australia, and New Zealand. And it was really funny because I was living in Fiji on the main island in this village. And I had no debt, no girlfriend, no obligations, nothing. It was just me. Brought my saxophone with me. I learned how to spearfish, and I had so much time, which is something I have none of now. And I woke up one morning, I was like, I'm bored. I think it's time for me to go to law school. And that's how I ended up going back. But it's funny because I'm always questioning what is the true nature of affluency? And is it time? Is it money? Where does that balance lie? And frankly, that's why I really appreciate what you do, because you found a way to really balance those activities better than I think I have in my current existence as an attorney.
It's been a struggle. I grew up, my dad's a businessman, so he always has to be on the run, always working. And up until early 20s, I was like that. And then a switch went off. And I think it's just mortality and seeing people 30-year-olds getting heart attacks or something, and there's a word for this, but people who it's morbid thought about death and stuff like that. I'm I have to kind of distribute my fun level, because I was having no fun just working, studying. I'm just not happy, and why put it off till later, because we don't know what's going to happen. So, and then that affected savings too. So I used to save a lot more, which I don't do as much now, because I'm kind of let's just enjoy it while it's here. But it's always back and forth. But the key was just getting to know myself and what I'm capable of. And I realized like, we talked about this earlier, I could only do a couple hours of legal work a day before I burn out. So the rest of the time I have to do something different. And marketing for me in these kind of interviews was my out, where it's like, it helps the business because like people get to know me, potential clients and stuff. So it is business development, but it's just fun kind of stuff, which is me getting to know people, and I hopefully make some money off it on the side too.
Yeah, and I love this series. I'm a fan and now a contributor, so
Oh, wow.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And so let's talk about, so, I mean, you got into immigration. How did that transition happen? Because you were a business attorney as well. You are a business attorney as well. How did transition go to immigration, and with your experience and what you do now?
So it's actually kind of interesting. I actually developed like the business acumen and doing the business stuff second. I found that I had just a very innate ability to understand business and how business grows, and setting up this practice and growing it. It also translates really well into working with the clients. But for me, honestly, I had the opportunity when I was a kid. My father died when I was 13 years old, and my mom had me volunteer at a cancer center one summer, and I met a Nigerian doctor. He picked to work with me, and make a long story short, he had lost his father. He picked my name out from the resume because of my cover letter, and he really gave me like this kick in my butt, which pretty much said, you're expecting other people to do things for you because you've suffered a loss, but the reality is you can only do it for yourself.
Wow.
And I quickly realized I was like, had no business doing medicine. But the story of this man who came from nothing in Nigeria to leading the research department at a cancer institution stuck with me. It was like something that just changed my entire perspective. And, we talk about these watershed moments, and that's what happened to me. And when I graduated from college, I was like, I wasn't ready to go to grad school. It was 1999. The economy was humming, .com, whatever. Went to career planning and placement, and one of the jobs that they had on the table was working for an immigration firm. And I was like, remembered back to this experience I had a few years earlier, and I was like, yeah, I want to learn more about this. Like, how do we help people come to the United States? How do we make this a better country through cultural diversity, through bringing the best minds to the US? And that's really how I got my start in business immigration law as a practice area.
I don't want to get too Barbara Walters about this, but you mentioned your dad passed away when you were young. Before you said that, I gave the example of that kind of incident causing me to question too much working. Now, you work a lot. You have a long day schedule. How did that affect your perception, and did that shift in your 20s when you started going into practice? Or
I don't know when it happened. I mean, honestly, I went to law school at night, and I worked full-time during the day. And it was one of those things where you have such limited time, you have to fill it to be able to accomplish everything. So I was working 9 to 5, going to law school, studying after that. And I really just got in the habit of being able to like do these long stretches of day.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is when I transitioned to actually like practicing as a lawyer, that habit kind of stuck with me. And it's a weird sort of thing, but I really like working at night. So, it gives me space and time to plan. I don't have to worry about the practice and what's going on. And I don't know. There's certain things in me that like, I feel like one of the main and most important things about being a lawyer is being able to communicate timely. These clients, it's their lives, they're relying on us, and like, you can be chill and have a good time with them and be relaxed, but you have to take their situation seriously. So I'm really big on communication and correspondence, and I really don't want to turn in for the night until I've really gone through all the emails and answered all the questions. And that's that time and space for me is in the evening. It's peaceful for me, and I don't mind doing the work, but I think it's the way I went to law school that really created this concept of how do you maximize your time. It's funny though, because when I graduated from law school, a buddy of mine came up to me and he's like, "Hey, Johnny, I'm really proud of you. How does it feel?" And I was like, "I'd like to thank all the friends I used to have," because it was like such a all intense type of situation. But it's just become part of me.
How does your firm operate? Are you a flat rate firm, hourly, or mix?
So we do as much as I can, we do fixed fee. As much as I can. I think the clients appreciate it. I think businesses want predictability. I think they need to know what they're budgeting for a process. Sometimes you win, sometimes it takes less time, sometimes you lose. But in the end, if you kind of know what goes into building a case, you can price them out fairly. These days, with the current administration, we are doing more hourly work. We're doing a lot more litigation. We're suing the government more often. Uh, we're doing some funky appeals. We're representing companies that are facing challenging situations with respect to them being investigated. And a lot of that just translates over to hourly work. And then the general business advice that we give. So we sort of function like general counsel for a lot of these companies until they're big enough to hire in-house. That work we do hourly as well.
And for your immigration lawyers that are working with it, their associates, do you have them track their time too, or what kind of systems do you have?
No, I don't.
They probably love you.
Yeah, I mean, I have other ways of measuring productivity. As we were talking about it, like I've kind of created departments within the firm based on case type. And then what I'm able to do is when we invoice something out, it gets tagged with the type of case it is. And then I run a report on that case type. So I'm able to see how much revenue is being generated per month per division. And then I look at the salaries and the overheads for that department. And then I can measure profitability that way. And I place it on the attorney, the senior associate or associate who's running that department. Like that falls on them, right? And if their staff is not being productive, then they have to make a recommendation to me. And so I don't really look at individual productivity as much as I look at unit productivity.
Interesting.
And that's the way I assess it. So.
Very interesting. And do you use any particular software to track this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty much done in QuickBooks, to be honest with you. But we have like case management software. We use Blue Dot. We have HR software. I mean, we got 45 people working for Green and Spiegel in the U.S. Under my direction across 4 offices. So we are very system driven. So yeah, that's kind of the way we function there. Is it's really about profitability per department.
Let's talk about your firm. So you have an international firm originally from Canada and then has offices here. And where are the offices located in the U.S.?
Yeah, so our headquarters is actually in Canada. Green and Spiegel is 65 years old as a firm. Mendel Green, who was the founding member, he was like kind of, like the founding immigration attorney up there. Like some of the stalwarts that we have down here in the U.S., like Austin Fragaman, or like people that really helped build the practice. In 2012, my wife got assigned her medical residency in Rhode Island, and I couldn't keep on the track I was with at the firm I was working at before. I was like thinking about where to go and who to work for, and I was friends with Evan Green, who's the managing partner of Green and Spiegel in Toronto. And he said, why don't we do something together? So we opened 2 offices in Philly and Providence, Rhode Island at the same time, because my wife was at Brown and I'm shepherding up and down on the Amtrak all the time. And then we added our office in Vail, Colorado that deals with like seasonal workers. And then recently,
like ski resorts and stuff?
Yeah, ski resorts, landscapers, building construction, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they do all of our H-2B work out of there. And then last year, we added our office in Cleveland, Ohio. And the interesting thing is that the 2 attorneys that became our partners out of that office, they were my coworkers when I got my first gig out of Case Western Reserve. So it kind of came full circle a little bit for me.
Awesome. And so how does it look right now? In the U.S. office, how many associates do you have?
We have 18 attorneys, and the staff is about 45. So I like to be a little bit more attorney heavy, and I think that that's dictated by the nature of this current administration and the fact that the work requires more attention and more attorney level action. But pretty much I like to have a 2-to-1 ratio, generally speaking, on assistants to attorneys.
Wonderful. And what is the general focus? So if like people are going to refer you cases, send you kind of stuff, what is the bread and butter what you guys are really good at?
I think our cross-border work between Canada and the United States is second to none. I mean, having the practice in um, Canada and Toronto and being down here, we do a lot of work along that northern border. We do a lot of work with CBP across the country. Other than that, I mean, personally, because of my interest in business, I really love corporate expansion. So companies that are coming from Europe or somebody that has an idea and wants to start a business, dealing in that LE2 realm, um, that's something I enjoy. Because those are the ones that also hire us typically for the business advice as well as for the immigration advice. And it's like really rewarding to watch a company grow as our firm grows. And you know, some of the people that you meet are just absolutely incredible. Like one of my favorite clients of all time is this French guy who was determined to disrupt the online lingerie market.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, whatever. But he had this like whole different model, whole different way of thinking about it. And he started with him and his buddy, and now they have like 100 people working for them in Europe, 200 people in the US, and they have like their brick and mortar businesses coming on. And still to this day, even though he doesn't really need me because they have in-house counsel, he'll ping me questions about like the business. And like the fact that he still contacts me to talk about his operations is, I don't know, there's something rewarding in it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why I enjoy L's in particular, because very sophisticated business people that I learn from. The process is a two-way street. It's not just me helping them. That I pick up stuff from them that helps me.
Yeah. And like even recently, you have to be willing to adapt. That's
Yeah.
another big thing. And recently we started doing a lot of work with Australians because the E3 visa, which is typically very easy, and they just go back to Australia, and a lot of them apply for their on their own. Now with the pandemic and embassies being closed and processing times being challenging, we connected with a group that is on Facebook and has meetups and everything, but it's like Aussie expats in the US. And we've been running monthly webinars just talking about how to navigate E3s.
Hmm.
And like honestly, it's been amazing. Like some of these webinars have attracted hundreds of people because like the word's gotten out. And it's cool to see how you can help an entire community through a difficult period of time. And that's been really rewarding as well.
Yeah. And so, have you been doing like different kind of marketing for your firm since COVID happened? Any changes in how you, or do you just have such a deep referral network that it just keeps coming?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we sort of took a little bit of a different turn with this particular experience because I sort of turned off a lot of the marketing, to be honest with you, and we moved more to a posture of pro bono. So, just to like let you know, like normally I charge for consultations,
Yeah.
you know, but we're offering free consultations across the board right now.
Wow.
Anybody who has questions about their status, I don't care who you are, this is our way of giving back. I started hearing about attorneys who don't really do immigration, like taking advantage of people and telling them they have to do X, Y, and Z without really understanding what was going on. And we just wanted to be a place for people to get good advice with no strings attached. So we've done, by last count, 357 free consultations since across the firm since COVID broke out. We've done a lot of outreach to universities. One of my partners is every Thursday afternoon has open office hours for students.
Hmm.
And honestly, I'm waiting to see how from a business perspective, I'm waiting to see how it translates into future work, because I feel like we're creating a lot of goodwill. We're getting our name out there, and people know we're not angling for anything. And it hasn't really translated into a corresponding amount of work now, but I think it will pay dividends in the long run. And like, frankly, John, it feels good
Hmm.
to just kind of give back when people need help the most. So it's been rewarding, and I think it will have a benefit from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, I did a similar thing. I actually increased my consultation fee, but what I do now is I have a daily live video. I do a live feed. So people are just nonstop for half an hour, just bam questions and stuff, answering them which way to go, what's good information, what's bad information, where to go. And then if they need help, because I do such limited type of cases, I say email me and I'll try to connect you with somebody. And so when they do and stuff, I try to send them out to someone I know in that area or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pro bono aspect is necessary. I had one guy who was EB1 and he who wanted a case to review it. I said, there's a fee, and he got really angry. He's like, during COVID-19, you're charging a fee? I'm like, yeah. But the nature of my firm, where I'm doing everything myself, it's kind of hard to do.
Yeah. It's a little different. I mean, we still have like our corporate clients that are giving us like the steady flow, or we're advising them on trickier things like furloughs and layoffs,
Yeah.
and you have to file amended petitions. So, I mean, look, it has not been a year of growth by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to maintain all of our staff levels, keep the salaries, keep the benefits going, and that's important to me as well.
Yeah. How much of a nightmare has the H-1B situation been for you with the furloughs and everything that's happening?
It's been rough. It's been rough. And like, frankly, we're really waiting for this new executive order to come down and see what the president's got up his sleeve in terms of restricting immigration further. There's a lot of fear out there, but the H-1B situation is particularly challenging because we have companies that want to apply furloughs or layoffs across the board, or do partial things or reduce work hours. And then to kind of convince them to say, like, you can't do that to your foreign nationals on H-1Bs because you have this obligation to the Department of Labor, and then convincing them that they have to do an amended filing or terminate the person and then leave them with no status, with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult discussion to have. I'm actually quite proud of the majority of the employers we've worked with. We've figured out ways to reduce the hours, to keep their visas valid. We've been filing amended petitions, and it's worked so far. But I think we're in for a few more bumps.
The visa category itself, it lacks flexibility. It doesn't make sense. And just this, they have to keep them full-time, lay off other people when they, it has to be adjustable because every 10 years the economy does a crash, and you spend so much money and time just to get the H-1B that you probably don't have anyone else that could take that position. So you need that person. Maybe it's a 3 or 4 month bump where you're not using as many hours. I mean, the amendments are there, but those cost money to do. They're going to come back with our fees on those. And you never know.
I will tell you what's been surprising, because I expected a lot of RFEs, but on the amendments we filed, they've actually been coming through approved.
Oh, nice.
But and I agree with you, because here's the pain in the butt. Like, the employer then has to go and file an amendment to bring them back up to full time. So, I mean, I'm not complaining too much from a firm perspective, but I think I agree with you. And if you look at what like a lot of other countries did, they made exceptions. They said, these work permits are automatically extended. And things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, we have these questions without asking them. We kind of go into them, but I guess I'll skip one of them because you already answered. But what do you dislike the most about, the practice of immigration law? I guess what we talked about right now is one aspect of it, but is there anything else that you dislike about, the daily practice?
I'll be frank with you, like, this administration has been very frustrating, and it's created a number of challenges because it doesn't operate like a regular administration or a regular Republican administration. I'm a firm believer in immigration. I believe in the system, albeit broken, but I think, we need people here to help. And what this administration's doing with policy changes and using the pandemic as a justification for further curtailing immigration, it's so frustrating because I think it's so misplaced. And how indicative of what this administration has done to immigration law is the fact that, prior to this administration, I never sued the federal government, ever.
Yeah.
We have filed more litigation in the past 4 years than I would like to do an entire lifetime. But that's kind of like the posture they're pushing us into. And one of the reasons why I was always attracted to immigration law is because I really believe that it is one of the only areas of law that is non-adversarial by nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe that if you do it right, everybody wins. the country wins, the company wins, the foreign national wins. We all grow together. This is the first time in my life where I feel like I'm fighting against something.
Yeah.
And you've worked with me. I'm more of a kumbaya kind of guy
Especially if you do USCIS practice, not removal defense, the adversarial part is what we cherish the most. Even between lawyers, we help each other out. And when you force you to come adversarial, it just brings out a part of you that you really don't want. But when they force it. I've seen people who have an itch for litigation when they go into removal and with ICE and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, with the USCIS practice, it's really just doing a clean job, explaining things properly, vetting the case out, and it's really just more cerebral kind of stuff, and that strategist.
Yeah, I mean, as I tell people at dinner parties, normally I'm a glorified travel agent. You know? Just trying to help people get to where they need to go. But
yeah. Any advice you had when you started that could help people out now? Something you wish you knew when you started?
I think one of the biggest things is I always looked to the people I was working for as like a beacon of how I should practice. And I think one of the things I've come to realize now when running a practice is that everybody has a different way of being a lawyer. And as long as you take on what you can actually accomplish and you stay dedicated and focused, and like I said, put a heavy emphasis on communication, you will succeed. The way I practice law doesn't necessarily mean that everybody at my firm needs to practice law the same way. Like I said at the very beginning, I'm like jealous of the way you practice law, and I think that that's something that's hard to recognize when you're younger. So now within my practice, like I try to foster an environment where people feel that they can explore and lawyer to their strengths rather than lawyer to what they think I would do in that particular circumstance. And that I think is the best advice you can give is really just like find you, find what makes you happy. What kind of work-life balance gives you the most joy out of existence? And I know it's a little cerebral, it's a little bit hard, especially with what's going on today, but that's at its core essence what it means to be an attorney. And the one other thing I would say is, and this is me personally, but for me, my practice and the way I function best is if I can be as proactive as possible. Like I want to keep moving the ball and pushing it back on my clients or have my ideas and work towards a goal. I think unhappiness as an attorney is when you find yourself where you're constantly reacting to situations. There's a pile of stuff on my desk I got to get through. And then tomorrow there's another pile, and then there's a pile after that. I'm not saying you're not going to have fires to put out. We all have fires to put out. They all kind of come up from time to time. But the more you can direct yourself to having a proactive approach to your practice, I think the more happiness it generates. You don't want to feel like it's a burden. You don't want to feel like it's an obligation. You want to do it because you feel motivated to help the clients that you're serving.
Both those things are dead on. I'm going to comment on them with the last one. Knowing there's a pile of work tomorrow that didn't get done or need to do is stress. And that's the thing. I always try to do it fast and not, have everything prepared before I go to sleep at night. So I know that weight is not on me. But one thing with these ridiculous RFEs that do come, all of a sudden you get a pile of work that you didn't expect. And like I have an I-130 RFE here. They RFE'd everything, and it's everything we sent already. Plus they say like you've been married before, you have kids, when we know, and they're like send the kids birth certificates. I'm like, did this guy even read the RFE or the applicant I-130 petition?
Oh, yeah.
That's going to take like 2 hours of prepping and resetting it. And I was like, that's 2 hours. That's a complete waste of time. And it just that part is like, it just creates work that wasn't needed. But the first thing you said is so key. When I went to law school, at least we graduated, I graduated a year after you. They kept pushing us to be the corporate attorney that works at a big firm. And that's the model that they push in law school. At least they used to when I went there. And I quickly, when I'd go to these nighttime meetings they would have at firms and stuff, I'm like, this isn't the kind of lifestyle I want to do. I like working in the morning and doing different kind of stuff. And so I quickly said, I got to find out what makes me happy in life. And a lot of people, they think like, oh, I'll put it off for later or something like that. But you got to figure out what that is and then work to that and then figure out a way to make money around that and have a life around that. It's so important. or else you're just gonna get frustrated, you know.
Right on. I mean, I think that that's a key point. So it's easier said than done
Yeah.
sometimes, my friend, but it is something to strive for sure.
Yeah, I mean, most people in the world are not successful at that, so it is like a 1% kind of thing. It seems like, I think so many people I run into are just unhappy with what they're doing, or they do it because their parents told them to do it, or there's professor told them to do it, and they go repeat some behavior just because they're told to. Because taking an independent stance is risky. I mean, doing the way I do is really risky. But I just said, you know what, I'll figure it out, and I'll do it because I realize that I get frustrated when I follow other people's patterns, because I'm really kind of independent guy to do. So every time I do that, it just bothers me. So I'm like, I got to figure out my own. Luckily, I have a wife who's a lawyer who does have a day job. So get married to a lawyer or a doctor, I think that's.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a little built-in safety cushion.
Yeah. It makes it easier.
Good stuff.
So our last question is unrelated to this. I was going to ask what your favorite marketing method is. We kind of talked about it with regards to what you're doing now after COVID-19. But what is your outside hobby? You said you play the saxophone. Do you have time to practice? Because I play the guitar and haven't practiced in 2 years.
So, I mean, you'll see this when your kids get a little older, but I have a 6-year-old. And honestly, like I used to do a lot of blues and funk, but now I play kid songs. And like my daughter and I, we write songs together now. And like,
Wow.
that's awesome. So every Saturday morning, my wife likes to do a little exercise, take a run, whatever. And me and the girls, we're like in the music room jamming out. And it's one of my favorite parts of the entire week. And I'll come up with like a little melody on the horn, and my daughter will just start singing, and we'll just kind of go from there. And
that's awesome.
yeah, like I go to like anytime I pass like a yard sale or a thrift shop, like I'm always looking for old schoolhouse instruments. I got everything, man. Like anything you remember from elementary school, I got it. Like the little xylophones, bongo drums, that stuff the kids just love to do. So that's the way I do it. But like, am I like playing with my friends and like jamming out on a Friday night? No.
Do you have time to practice? Because I've gotten so bad at it. Like people, this is a famous kind of saying, but like to other people who don't play music, they think, oh, you're playing well. But to yourself and people who know how to play music, like if you don't practice, you hear the.
No, I'm like way worse than I was before. That's for sure. But I'm having fun, and that's the main thing. It's a way of communicating. It's just another way of communicating. And then I really like road cycling, which has been pretty good during a pandemic because I don't need anybody else to get on my bike and go ride. And for me, that's a very zen kind of activity because I can't answer the phone, can't answer any text messages. So like actually after this, I'm going to go pedal for about an hour and blow off some steam. So,
Well, I'll do a follow-up question with saxophone because I enjoy blues. Like what kind of blues you listen to and play back when you had the time to play?
Oh man, I was a huge Thelonious Monk fan, still am. Coltrane obviously is like a dream, and Herbie Hancock, and he's some of my all-time favorites. I love some of the old Memphis and New Orleans blues guys, and really anything that has like a funky kind of bass pocket where people are sharing space and listening to each other and just playing off of each other to make a sound that is better than the sum of its parts. And that's what gets me going.
One thing is, as much as I love blues as my like number one, I like reggae and blues, but like I never got into jazz. And being a saxophonist, usually a lot of jazz goes into that. What is your opinion on jazz?
So I like jazz. I love listening to it, but I'm not good enough to really play jazz. And it's jazz is like a whole nother level of existence. It's almost like you have to learn everything to forget it so that you can play your solos. And like we said, I've always had other interests. So my fingers aren't quite fast enough, and my music theory understanding is like not quite there to move in different meters and different tempos. Whereas with blues, it's like, or funk, it's just feel. It's what you got in you. You know what I mean? So it's like easier for me as a person to get my head around it. But,
I just feel like I connect with blues and funk and stuff. Like it takes over my body almost. It just it goes in. Whereas jazz, it's like it doesn't mathematically make sense as much. It doesn't get me up and down. I just can't
No,
get jazz. I don't know why.
it's like it's much headier.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I got a few people on staff that are like one guy in particular who's a professional jazz musician. And he gigs almost every night, and like he's on a whole nother plane. I mean, that dude. Yeah, he won't even play with me because I'll embarrass him.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh,
People
this was
have to-
fun, man. Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So it's been good knowing you all these years. I'm glad we got to go one-on-one and get to know you a little more deeper. But if you want to reach out and contact you, what's the best way to get to know you, contact you, all that kind of stuff?
Email me, jgrode at gans-us.com. You can visit our website, www.gans-us.com. You can Google Grode immigration. There's not too many of us floating around. Or they can write to you and get in touch with me.
Yeah, I'll definitely do. But I'll have your info in the show notes. It was a pleasure seeing you, and hopefully, just outside of this stuff, get to talk again. Every couple of months, reaching out would be good.
Yeah, most definitely, my man. Everybody stay safe out there. And John, thank you. It was good talking to you.
You too, bro. Good talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.